Namaste and welcome to this evening's session on a wonderful topic, detachment versus attachment. So, as our practice, before we start, please join me for the prayer. And I request you all to, say it along with me. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Welcome back, and it's my pleasure again to bring to you another interesting topic. And I thank the viewers for suggesting such enlightening and deep topics every week. Today we will look at attachment versus detachment. And I understand that this has been a little bit philosophical, at the same time, a very intriguing topic for many, because at one hand we can't help but get attached, and on the other hand, everybody tells us to remain detached to be happy. So let us explore it. Join me in exploring and understanding it a little bit more. So uh, let me start this slide here. So let us start with, basically, let's understand what do we understand by attachment. So when I say that I am attached to somebody, what do I mean? In a simple way, it means that we have an emotional bond. There are connection, as we call it. There is a connect. So it's an emotional bond, a feeling that binds one to a person, to a thing, to a cause, or to an ideal. So something which there is a reason to connect. So emotional bond and a feeling that connects to for these things, be a person, thing, cause, or an ideal. Correct? So that's how we have this understanding of attachment. Then what is detachment? Detachment is explained again the opposite of attachment, and it is understood as aloofness. If somebody is indifferent, we say he's detached person, right? Or somebody is cool, like they say, cold-hearted person, he must be detached. He has got nothing. Something like an unconcerned being. So, unfortunately, detachment has a little bit of negative connotation if you look at formal definitions of things. But that's how we look at it. Attachment is emotional bonding, and detachment is kind of indifference, unconcerned, aloofness is the feeling, correct? So, this is how we have been so far understood. Let's look at detachment a little bit more. Is detachment renunciation? Because when the concept comes, detach yourself. So the first thought comes, in what do you mean? We are working so hard, and people expect detach means leave everything and go to forest. So is it renunciation? Is it detachment? Is it that? Honestly speaking, it is not. Detachment is not renunciation. Detachment may lead into renunciation, that is a different story. And that has a different connotation and different approach and understanding. But detachment per se is not renunciation. Then let's look at it further. What it is, we call it non attachment. In a simple English, we call it non attachment. Then what does it mean to have no attachment to what? If I want to have towards an object, correct? So if I want to understand detachment to somebody, and I would say, okay, don't be attached to a thing or an object. So non attachment towards an object or towards the interest in the object. So I like something, but I'm interested in something, So even if the object is not in front of me, it is the interest in the object which keeps me attached to the object. Correct? So non-attachment to the interest. So this is the second element of what is detachment. How do we understand how to achieve detachment? And then third detachment is towards the result. So this is an important point to understand. And as I keep always reminding people that, these are all scriptural wealth which we are just sharing with each other. And whole Bhagavad Gita is actually summarized in that way. So non-attachment towards object, towards interest in the object, and towards the result. So that is how detachment is required and needed. So now the question is, again, the question is reason for attachment. Why do we get attached with anything for that matter? Now there are reasons for that also. So we understand detachment now. What does it mean? But let us look at now attachment. So attachment can happen because of expectations. See, I expect my students to pass, get good grades. So I'm attached to them. I expect my employees to work hard so that we can achieve. I expect my children to do something in return or whatever. That expectation creates attachment. Association, something like, you have a puppy, and the longer it stays with you, you get attached to the puppy. He may not give you anything financial or monetary, but there is an association, and because of just mere association continuous, you develop a sense of attachment to that thing or a person. Ignorance is biggest reason for attachment, because you don't know why you are crying, but you are crying because you lost something which was anyways going away. It's like a castle, sand castle at the beach. You make a sand castle and a water comes and it's gone. So it's an ignorance which makes you attached to the castle. If you are attached and you wonder like, oh my God, it should not be hurt, it should not be damaged, but it will. So the reason for attachment is also ignorance. And the last is very interesting, love. How many of you will accept that love becomes the biggest reason for attachment? You love somebody, and that love makes you get attached to the thing, to a person, or whatever. So these are four broad headings. I'm not saying these are all comprehensive and all inclusive, but they are kind of a broad heads which explains to us that why do we get attached. So expectation, association, ignorance, and love. So this leads to attachment. Now, what is the reason for detachment? Now, similarly, if you look at it, when I have nothing, no relationship left with somebody, I will get detached. Now, people who have this, especially youths can relate to it. Once you cross that stage of initial attraction and there is no connect, so automatically the attachment also falls and you tend to experience detachment. That I'm not attached anymore. So if there is no relationship left, then you can experience detachment. The more and more you get aware, the knowledge comes into picture. When you are aware of the reality, the truth of the being, the nature of the environment of the world, then natural detachment also happens. The third is gratification. Gratification is basically, when you are chasing something, you're attached, but once that fulfillment happens, then it's over. So I may be attached to food, but once my stomach is full, then the attachment goes off till I get hungry again. So gratification. And of course, no love. So the moment you feel lack of love, detachment happens. Okay. So if you look at the reason for attachment and detachment, they are kind of, opposite to each other, obviously. So it creates now detachment. Now, the interesting part starts because we are always looking at, everybody says you should not be attached to things. Why? Why do we ask for detachment? The common understanding is that attachment brings sorrow. So, because if you're attached to something and you lose it, you get sad, hence, practice detachment. Correct? So, attachment brings sorrow, hence, practice detachment. Detachment enables growth. See, if I'm not stuck to something, some place, a person, or a thing, I don't have any strings attached, then I'm free. So that growth is enabled when I'm detached. Attachment is like an anchor. You got an anchor, so you can only go so much. It'll pull you back. So detachment, in a way, we understand it enables growth. And that is why detachment. And bigger reason, happiness. Because when I am detached, I have less obligations, I have less headache, less burden, I experience happiness. Attachment gives me a short term happiness. Detachment may tend to give me bigger happiness. Broadheads again. Why do we need detachment? But now I will ask you a basic question. In keeping all of these things in mind, that are we really attached? That we talk about detachment. In my experience of dealing with people, dealing with youths, majority in corporate and school environment education, my study feel that we are not attached really. We pretend to be attached because if we were attached, the thing will be different. So if we are not attached and we are pretending to be attached, then we have a problem of detachment. Only when you are attached, then the logic of detachment may work. And I'll tell you why. And that is where I said, is it really attached? So basically, we are not. Look at our life. As we grow, our interests change. For example, when we are a child, a small child is attached to his toy, but the same child, when he grows, that child forgets that toy and moves on to the next toy, a bigger toy. So from a toy, it can go to bike. From bike, he can go to car. From car, he can go to wife. He can go to anything. So attachment keeps changing. So basically, with age, if it changes, that means there was really no attachment in a true sense. That is why it changed. If you're attached, then it should be attached. Then how can you leave attachment just because of time? It's a matter of time that you will drop one habit. It's a matter of time that you will drop a relationship. So today, a child is holding on to mommy, can't breathe without her. And the same child, when he comes to teenage, he is comfortable in moving on. And then it becomes a pain for him that when mom asks, where are you going? It's a headache. Mommy, why do you keep chasing me? Because the same child who was attached to his mother feels overwhelmed or suffocating if mom is more approaching. So there is a relationship also keeps changing. So nothing in this life actually is attached. Look at our skin. I was always admiring that. From a physical perspective, look at our skin. Nothing stays on the skin. Have you ever noticed that? Even a paint goes off. It may take time to go, but it goes. Nothing sticks. We are made like that. If you stick something permanently, that will damage, that will hurt. So, attachment is actually a misnomer, according to me. I feel that is the beauty in the sense of word which we understand attachment as it does not exist. We are not attached to anything. We can change our habits, we can change our likes, dislikes, relationships. We keep changing every day. So, how can we have a problem of attachment when truly speaking, we don't have attachment? So, all the struggle of detachment is actually make believe because we are not even attached properly. But then we are still having this fear of attachment. I hope I'm not confusing with these versions, but let us understand a little bit more about attachment. Now, I was telling you that I do not believe in attachment, but I'll share with you what actually is attachment. Mythological example, Kunti, the mother queen of Pandavas. There is a very beautiful story that at the fag end, everything was over. When Krishna also finished the purpose of his life journey and he leaves the mortal coil, Kunti feels it. And when the messenger confirms it to her that mother, Lord Krishna has left the physical body, the scriptures tell us that she dropped dead. At the same time, she says, now I have no purpose to live, and she leaves her body. Now, if I call attachment, I would say that is attachment. She was so attached to Krishna that she could not breathe even for a second without him. And the moment she heard that Krishna has gone, she felt it and she left her body. And I would still restrict this example as a physical attachment, if you call it. But then there are more examples which are a little bit what I call as metaphysical examples. Look at, for example, Surdas. He was blind poet, devotee of Lord Krishna, who never physically saw God, but he always was evolved with God. So his attachment was such that there was hardly any moment that Surdas felt alone, helpless. He always found Krishna with him. One day he even fell into a deep well, dry, deep well, and he remained there for a couple of days till somebody heard his singing and pulled him out. When questioned, he said, "You disturbed me. For me, a blind man, a deep well or this is same. But when I was there, my Krishna was with me." The attachment of Surdas was not physical, but still he experienced attachment and it gave him joy. He lived a fulfilled life. Look at Mira's attachment. She also was a similar example of oneness with Lord to such an extent that she became Krishna. They evolved oneness with that. Now, these are metaphysical examples. Now, if I look at this, if the purpose of life is happiness, then here are examples which prove that attachment is good. And I proved to you before that we are really not attached. So the journey of life is not to get detached, but actually to get attached. Because by default, this human life, we are not attached. We are literally selfish. We are clean people. We get attached because we are afraid, because we feel we must get attached. So we pretend attachment. We pretend to like somebody. We pretend to be dependent on somebody because we are driven differently. But truly speaking, we are not attached at all. This is an example in front of us that attachment can give you the supreme bliss, supreme fulfillment, supreme accomplishment, if only it is true. So, here what happened? They were also not born with attachment from physical sense, but they developed attachment. So, attachment per se, if I look at the word, now the word does not have a negative connotation for me. And detachment does not have to worry about a positive it has a positive connotation. So now I would love to have attachment, not detachment. Because by default, I am detached, but I am forced to attach myself because of social pressures, because of my vasanas, because of my environment, because of my training. But actually, we are not attached. Can I stop breathing like Kunti the moment my beloved leaves me? Here I will sign a divorce and start marrying somebody else. You may pretend to be like my sweetheart, sweetheart, and then next moment you find somebody else. Most of the social abuses will disappear if we were truly attached. So, attachment is not the problem. The problem is where to get attached. The default version is detachment. And that is why I wrote that attachment is a borrowed experience. Attachment is not our real status of existence. We are truly detached beings, but we have to learn to attach to the right thing. And the reason for attachment is the supreme joy, bliss, and fulfillment. Unfortunately, when we define our joy, fulfillment through the physical realms, through monetary, criterias, through physical accomplishment, through sensual gratifications, then the whole equation goes haywire and we are confused. So basically, we are looking for attachment, not detachment, because we have to learn how to attach to the right thing which will give us permanent happiness and joy. Because by default, we are totally detached. Not even skin, our skin can take anything attached. It doesn't stay on the skin also. Imagine going inside, nothing stays with us. And here is an example that attachment is needed, but unfortunately, we interpret it differently. And that is why understanding attachment is the key. Now, then, what is real attachment? Now, when I talk about God, some people may have some issues about the word God. But real attachment, what is God in that sense? Then, if you look at it, there is nothing like in in physics, in metaphysics, they talk to you about that there is nothing other than atom, molecules all around. Energy is everything. Even the body which looks so gross, even the stone which looks so heavy and gross, is basically nothing but atoms, energy. So, in the real attachment is that oneness, the experience of oneness, the I ness, that is attachment. So, the more and more I am filled with I, myself, oneness, I get real attached. Because now that oneness I see everywhere. So, I'm kind of attached to everything. I can't say I love this finger, I don't love this finger. I'm attached to this nail, I'm not attached to this nail. Not possible. So the real attachment is oneness, the concept of togetherness. Now, here is a one thing which I was starting, I told you, one of the reasons for attachment is love. I mentioned that in the beginning, the cause. Now, here we have to understand what is love, not in that in a philosophical sense, but looking at it from a physical level. If you look at it, when the love is limited and has fear as the basis, see, this is a criteria which we must understand. Anytime love at a physical level, it is limited and has a fear as a basis. That is the reason for our attachment in the physical realm. So, if we work with fear, this limited attachment, what we are facing in the world, comes because of that. So when I said love is the cause of attachment, it is because of this. So it is not a real love, but it is understood like that because it is limited and has a fear of the basis, like fear in the sense If I do not respect my boss, he may fire me. So I don't respect or be, you know, devoted to my job because I love it, because I am afraid that I should not lose my position. I run to reach my office on time, not because I am in love with my job and my environment, because I am afraid that if I go late, my salary may be cut. I am respectful to my environment, not because I love my environment, but because they give me back something. So it's a give and take. So there is always an element of fear which drives 99% of our actions. And that is what needs to be rectified. Because fear should not be the cause of our action. At a non physical level, if you look at it, then the love becomes limitless. It is pure and fearless. Today, parents are afraid to talk to their children. They are scared to scold them. Why? Because they are afraid that they may complain to somebody. They are afraid that children may run away. They are afraid that they can revolt, they can insult. Why this fear? The fear is because they did not love unconditionally. Because love has that power to even scold, to slap, to avoid. The biggest punishment you can give it to your loving child is avoidance. Just turn your face and see how the child will follow you. So, love can never be out of fear, or it can never lead into fear. If there is any element of fear anywhere, that means that much love has gone down. So, love and fear don't go at the same parlance. Love is fearless, love is pure, love is unconditional, love is expansive. So, if I feel fear or some kind of doubt in my head, that means my love quotient has gone down. Hence, I must rack it up again. That is important to remember. And let's look at it. How love, if misguided, then what happens? That's why, summary, fear becomes the basis of action. When the love is not understood and taken in the right perspective, then you will realize fear. And then the second attribute is that you will start seeing negativity in everybody. You will start noticing that, oh, he has some fault, he has some fault. The same person whom you loved, whom you enjoyed, whom you saw beautiful, handsome, and everything, suddenly you start seeing now all his faults. So, if love is misguided, then you will experience these two things for sure. One, fear. It could be fear of losing, fear of rejection, whatever. But there will be an element of fear. And the second indicator is that you will start seeing negativity around you. You will start seeing something wrong, something faulty, and that will become prominent. And that is an indicator for us to realize that my love has moved, has shaken, because now I'm seeing something more, which I'm not supposed to, because love is oneness. And when the love is that concept of oneness, then the question of detachment is not required. If I am the only person standing, then who do I detach from? So that is why the detachment quotient is not required if we understand love. If we really understand love and we work towards it and we work with it, then we have to only use love to attach ourselves to oneself, to I-ness, to the God. So there is no question of detachment. So it's a beautiful journey to understand that initially we may practice detachment, but to only realize that actually we are not practicing detachment, we are actually finding attachment. And where to attach ourselves is the challenge, because so far we are only pretending to attach ourselves with our children, with our family, with our job, with our people, with our environment, with our cars. We are only pretending attachments because everything changes, everything is destined to move, and that is important. So, so this is a short, quick thought I have shared with all of you. I have certain questions which have come to me. Let me start, and I have few people in the studio also who have expressed their questions. So I'm going to share with you the questions, and then people who are watching us from YouTube are welcome to start sharing your thoughts on whatever I've shared. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to write it down or join me here. So let me take the first question here. Uh, these are the questions which have been sent to me through my email as I had requested, and thank you all for participating. How to identify whether an action is coming from attachment or from love? So I think I have answered this question. Same answer would be from my side. I understand it that if an action has an element of fear, then it is not love, it is attachment. The action with love will be fearless. So when you have love dominating, then you can, you know, speak the truth without worrying about the consequences. And the consequence will always be for the good of everybody. So I would say the easiest identification of attachment versus love is the basis of fear. And think about from that perspective that is there any element of fear around, or if it is just, and you can feel comfort, you can feel the calm and peace in your heart while you take that decision. Second question was, how can we love our children, parents, spouses, without getting attached? Now, with all my presentation, I would ask you, why do you want to get, detached? Why do you want to get detached from your parents, from your children? God has given you a beautiful life. Be attached to them. But can you be really attached to them? The problem is our attachment, again, if it is based on fear, then this attachment is a problem, because then you will either restrict your children, the children will restrict the parents, and then that is a problem. A spouse will keep fighting with each other. They start, making suffocating each other. That's all possible if the love quotient is different. So you can love with attachment only if you know what to get attached with. So on a physical level, when we talk about, there is a term which we use normally is called detached attachment. And detached attachment, my master used to give us an example of a principal of a school. He would say, like you must love your relation like a principal loves the school. He's whole and soul in charge of everything, not only children, but even the building, the furniture, the chairs, everything. So he walks around, he takes care of everything possible. And the moment he hands over the children after the school hours to parents, he is relaxed. How many principals call up home to ask, did the child eat? Did he sleep well? Are you taking good care of my children? Nobody does that, because the principal, when in the school compound, he is totally attached. If there is a scream, he will be the first person there. If there is a hurt, he will be the first person to be reporting. So he is totally attached with the whole environment. But the moment school bell goes and the child leaves his premises, he is relaxed. So that is detached attachment, wherein you are attached for the cause. You are attached because of the higher idols. You are attached because of the whole ambience, but you are totally detached as far as the human relationships are concerned. So he's perfectly detached and attached at the same time. So the term is detached attachment. Before I take third, let me, is Shobna ji there? Yeah. Yeah, let me. Hello, Shobna ji.
Second.
You had a question. I thought, welcome to this program. Thanks for joining me here.
Yes.
So you had
Thank
shared some question. Please share with everybody so we can discuss that too.
Does what we get attached to is it based on our vasana?
So your question is, what we get attached to, is it based on our vasanas?
Yes.
Vasanas are imprints, as we have discussed them very thoroughly in last sessions. Vasanas are the imprints based on our karmas for all our lives in the past. So those imprints do influence and have major impact on our actions. And that way, yes, vasanas do lead into our clinging on to people whom we interpret as attachment. So vasanas do create attachment, but vasanas are like an expression of attachment, but it is not the real cause. The vasanas is again another game, but yes, from that angle, yes, vasanas has a correlation with attachment. Any other questions, sister?
If attachment is it's an object of the mind. For example, if somebody is attached to their car, it's not a physical attachment, but it's an emotional attachment to the car. For example, and so like any other object, we know that all objects are temporary. They have a transient presence in our life. But then when we get knowing its impermanence, why does the mind get attached to it again and again?
Logically, you know that it is impermanent. So the day you really realize it that it is impermanent, you will not have this problem. So sometimes, we have knowledge, we have information. That's what I tell in our educational training. Also, I tell teachers that knowledge should not be, sorry, information should not be interpreted as knowledge. See, today is a knowledge explosion. You Google everything. Just because a child can get information does not mean that he has knowledge about the information. So, for the information to become knowledge, he needs to churn it, internalize it, understand it. So, once that happens, then we call somebody, he's a knowledgeable person because he knows the matter and he understands it. So, just having information is not knowledge. But then the next step, we all miss it, is when does knowledge become wisdom?
By practice.
By practice. That is experience. So once we have, without that, people pretend, knowledgeable people pretend to be wise. But you can see the difference because now they have no experience. They haven't practiced what they have understood. So we understand I am God, but I have not practiced yet. So if I start talking like God, people will laugh at me because they know that I'm not. So the difference is that my knowledge has come for various reasons. The knowledge of God has come, but the experience of God has not come. So that to that extent, I am not allowed to speak. That's why Paramahansa Yogananda said, you cannot say that you are God unless you are God. And once you are God, you don't need to say it. So it's a beautiful catch 22. So that is where your thought is very beautiful. Because we understand it, it does not mean that we have experienced it. That's all. So now
So
it's our journey now.
it starts with an intellectual piece and then it works with practice.
That is why I say, that's why our every like scriptures will tell you that this bhakti, gyan, all that is not separate. They are all part of the same coin. The different shades. You can start anywhere. You have to touch everything. So like Meera was totally bhakti, but look at her words. If you hear her words, it is philosophy. So that means bhakti always delivered gyan.
Yeah.
So a jnani cannot be jnani unless he is bhakti. Look at Narada. So he is bhakti, but look at his words. It is gyan. So from Jnanamarg also you can come to bhakti. You have Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya, pure Jnanamarg. But look at his later part of his compositions. It is deep, seeped into bhakti. When he invokes mother, you can't touch it. So there is nothing which is escaping. So whether you start from bhakti or gyan, you will have to merge. So everything is one, but it's a starting point. Where do I start from? So we are, I would say, from most of our journey, we have partial devotion, partial knowledge, and we are juggling between two and then growing together and saying, okay, which one leads me another step forward? But I cannot just drop one thing. I must understand that both are important and required in our growth. Excellent. Any other question? Okay. So I'll take another question from our audience, which have already sent me. And Radha mentions here, how can we detach from the fear of hurt in relationships with people? Let me present it here. If I may, if I may put it in a very simple manner, see, the fear of hurt itself shows that we have gone into relationship as incomplete person, and there is a need for somebody else to make this relationship full. So hence the starting of the relationship itself was based on fear, the fear of being alone, the fear of incompleteness, the fear of lost. I need something. That need, that is the starting point. Hence you have the fear of hurt now, of losing thing. If I am complete, then I have nothing to lose. But in my journey, other person joins me and we mutually grow and accomplish. That is relationship. But unless and until we understand that, the love quotient also is not right. And hence, unfortunately, the fear of hurt will remain, because there is a fear which is the starting point of the journey. So as long as we are starting in this journey with fear, we can't help but experience fear throughout our journey. If you start with love, that I am complete in whatever format. See, like I keep joking also with people that, people are like, they say, make a good physique, have six packs. So I said, I'm perfect with my family pack. If somebody is bald, you should say that I'm perfectly bald. If somebody is, short, I'm perfectly short. Who has defined that a perfect body is 6 feet tall with some six pack? That perfection is a definition given by us, and that is why we are confused. Imagine if everybody was six pack, then six pack would lose its like flavor into it. But here you have somebody chubby whom you feel like pinching the lips, the cheeks. You have somebody cute that you want to enjoy playing. Imagine. So God has made everybody perfect. I can be perfectly bald. You can be perfectly short. Somebody can be perfectly fat. It does not matter. We are all perfect in the eyes of God. And with that perfection, enter into relationships. Because the journey is not just perfection in that understanding, but fulfillment of life. In that journey, somebody would join me, another perfect being, and we two perfect beings will lead into perfection together in fulfillment. So, detaching from fear of hurt is starting with no fear. I hope it helps, sister. Thank you. Vibha, how can we attach to a person with having a fear that I will not lose them? Eva, rethink your question. I've already given thoughts to it. You cannot start with a fear. Okay, let me bring in another question which was given to us from the audience, and that would be question number 3 was, many parents do not discipline their children because they think being stern is going to reflect to their children they don't love them. How to discipline children and love them without being attached? Now, the problem is, now I think after my talk, these questions may change. But yes, the issue is real. I actually touched upon it during my presentation, that disciplining the children requires love. Attachment is when you expect them to behave the way you want them to behave, not the way they should behave. So the difference between how they should conduct and how you want them to conduct is your challenge as a parent. And parent must understand that the philosophy, the understanding of yours could be right, but the way it is explained may need a little modification or adjustment based on the time, place, and circumstances. The way my grandfather spoke to my father did not speak to me like that, and certainly I cannot speak to my children like that. So it is the same thing which we have to speak, but probably we have to speak it differently. So how to discipline? The way they are supposed to be disciplined, you must. And you must first love them. Attachment, as I said to you, attachment is natural and you must have attachment to your child. But be careful that attachment should not be based on expectation, fear, and those kind of negative elements. If you are attached to him because you love, then I don't think there is any issue in that. And that is why we discussed about detached attachment concept. So you can use that part here. The fourth question is, explain detachment versus commitment. This is an interesting question. In relationships, how does one deal with non-committed people that is supposedly practicing detachment and yet hang out with multiple partners? Here, actually, if you ask me, the problem is not attachment or detachment. The problem is values, morality, and you know it's a spectrum. If you draw a line on detachment, on one hand you have, on the extreme end you have detachment with everything, and when you are attached only to your god and yourself. But on the other end of the spectrum, the detachment becomes, you know as the question states, a non-committed, hippie style of life in which you are not attached to anybody. So the problem here is not attachment. Problem here is of values. So if you are attached or committed, if you are looking for a commitment from a person who is morally weak, if you are looking for a commitment from a person who is made non-committal, who does not have the basis of that value system, then there is a fault in the beginning itself. So it is not detachment versus commitment. So non-committed people are actually not an issue in this manner for detachment. But yes, if a person if I delete the last portion, multiple partners, then you say he's not committed and he says I'm practicing detachment. Well, then again he's wrong. The person is wrong. I should not say he or she, anybody. It can be wrong because, in my understanding, It is actually the word dharma. If you are having a relationship, whether a committed or non-committed, there is a boundary for each relationship, and that must be respected. Whether it is a matter of trust, whether it's a matter of maintaining a kind of an open communication, all that is required. So this question needs to look at it differently, and I only would suggest that look at it from that point that it's a moral issue, it's a value issue, and not a detachment issue. If anybody is trying to put a curtain of detachment on it, that is eyewash. Okay. Anybody else? I have got two more questions, but let me see if any other questions. Is remembering a loved one after they leave their physical body leads to attachment? Uh, Another good question, Viva. Let me flash it here. Is remembering a loved one after they leave their physical body leads to attachment? I wouldn't call that as an attachment. If you remember that, why won't you remember? If suppose my family or somebody whom I loved, who has cared for me, who has sustained me, if I leave them, lose them, it is a gratitude. It's a human nature and humanness to offer my gratitude to him or her or that person. And that gratitude makes me remember him and fondly remember him. And in their name, I can do a lot of other service activities or whatever. And that is not attachment which binds me. I'm attaching myself to that memory. I'm attaching myself to that loftiness, that beauty, that good memories of life which that personality has given me, that I am grateful about. So remembering them is good. So please don't use the word attachment in a negative connotation always. So here, but yes, if this attachment drags you down, if it makes you weak, if makes you depressed, then you are wrong. Then again, it leads to understand that now you are getting dependent on somebody and you are insulting your own being. So never have a gratitude ceremony turn into a self-beating or punishing exercise. Gratitude is a very lofty, is a very happy occasion when I remember somebody and say, I'm so grateful that I was given the opportunity to serve, to be, to experience that. So keep that in mind. So that is important. I have one brother Ramakrishna here in the studio. Let me invite him. Hi, brother.
Hi, hi Ram.
So you have been hearing all that. Uh, any feedback, any thoughts on your side?
Well, it's excellent to realize some of these things with wisdom. I think one thing that comes to my mind is we all realize that there is definitely attachment and detachment, but how do we balance these two? And should we? Partly, you answered my questions and my thoughts, I mean, summarizing the thoughts, but I still have this lingering thought in my head. Now, how do we balance this? I mean, when should we be really attached? I know you talked about love and fear, but is it really what it is? I mean, is it always about love and fear, or is something else? For example, I'm attached to my job because of my requirement, my necessity. How do I define that? I mean, suppose if I want to retire and then I comfortably and have something, then I have to have my job. Is it attachment? Or I say no, I don't want this much of, I don't need this much of luxury after my retirement. So I'm what I have for that is sufficient right now, and therefore I can be detached and get out of this. So this is what sometimes it keeps coming back to many of us. I think how do we balance this attachment detachment?
See, brother, can you stop breathing?
No.
Sorry to say that way, but can we say our heart that you have worked so hard for all these years? Take a Sunday off.
Hmm.
We can't, right?
Right.
So the nature of human body is action, and that is why even in scriptural term we call it kshetra. It's an a body, it's an activity field. It's a
Hmm.
continuous activity. Can you help? You can't help but breathe. You can't help but act. So
Right.
our Vedic philosophy thought tells us that since we have to act, then let's act.
Yeah.
Why
Do the
worry
karma.
about results?
Hmm.
Why worry about results? Because whether you like it or not, you are going to breathe. You like it or not, your hair is going to grow. So the point is, you get up in the morning, whatever abilities and talent Lord has given you, put them to use, whatever happens. So whether it is, that's why the retirement is a very physical and a very business like approach to law, God, to the life. In life, you don't retire. Can we say after 65 people just sit at home? I have seen most people get active after 60. They start getting adventurous, they start getting creative. So the problem is the definition of life is disturbed by us. And who says you can't retire at 40, even 30, from that normal rut of working under somebody and reporting at 9 to 5? You want to break that shackle and do something of your own. So retirement of that definition can happen any time of the life. But the problem is not that. The problem is with what intent we work. We work because we have a fear what will happen in the future. So subconscious, there is a fear element which makes you work. If I stop working, what will happen to me? Do I have enough saving? Tomorrow there's an inflation. What will happen? See, there are so many fear factors which are actually driving us to keep working. And we, in the chase of working, we forget that working is our duty. Till I breathe my last, I must work. So why am I connecting my working with the fear? So if you work, you are going to get results. So why this fear element has suddenly come in the middle? This is the point of inquiry, not what will happen to me tomorrow. Because what will happen to you tomorrow will happen to you tomorrow, whether you like it or not.
Hmm.
Nobody decided, right, that COVID will happen.
Right.
Everybody had big plans. People are jumping. You talk to anybody, nobody had time. Everybody was so busy in life that not even a second we could spare. And suddenly a nature slap, and everybody is sitting at home for last 5 months. So a person who had no time for breathing for a second, how could he sit in for 2 months at home and do practically nothing? So which also proves us that that work was never important in being alive or having a fulfilled life. What we kept complaining all our life, we don't have time. When time was given to us, we could not handle that free time. And we are desperately looking to work. The thing which you were trying level best to take a break and take a holiday, I want to relax, I want to do my hobby. And when time was given to you, you couldn't do hobbies. We are all frustrated in our places. Oh my God, I can't go out. Hey, you wanted to not go out. You are blaming the traffic, you are blaming the government, you are blaming everybody. Now you sit at home, enjoy. Even that we could not do. Why? Because our understanding of life is already disturbed. So the chase is not of working. Working is default. The fear is our problem. That fear is also unwanted because we have created the fear. What will happen tomorrow? As if I know my next moment. Nobody knew COVID. Forget COVID. Nobody knows what will happen next second. I'm talking to you now. What will happen after 1 minute? I don't know. Nobody knows. So, what the hell am I preparing for? What am I really looking for? What is worrying me? So, why should I strain myself and create a fear for something which is totally unknown to me and not live in the present, which is my gift? And then question, how do I handle my fear? Isn't it absurd if you think about it? It looks like the problem was never there. I created the problem and now I'm looking for solution. I made an imaginary problem I created and now I'm looking for an imaginary solution. So there is no
Yeah.
problem actually. So the real fact of what our master has taught is that Action is your duty. You can't help it. How you will survive, that is my job. When he will pull the plug and stop you making breathing, that we don't know. And if I'm supposed to be swinging in the golden chariot, I will get golden chariot whether I work or not. Whether I do anything or not, I'll be born in that manner. If I'm not, if I'm supposed to be on the streets, I will be. So the beauty of life is that our attitude of functioning is for self-realization. That is a secret which our Gita and our scriptures tell us, that the purpose of human life must be identified. The action will be based on our body. Of whatever vasanas we have accumulated, that will determine how I'm supposed to conduct. Am I supposed to conduct intellectually, physically, from valorous point of view, from physical point of view, from labor point of view? That is that is different. That does not identify my retirement or my working. But the purpose is, if I'm sewing a cotton, if I'm making cloth, am I achieving God? Wasn't that Kabir? If I'm making an idol, am I arriving God? If I'm serving in business, am I serving God? The whole concept of life is spiritual from that point of view. So do I realize that my life is a spiritual life? Or do I make it still a very cheap and common style? Oh, my life is to eat, to work hard, so that I can save something for my child, my old age, which I don't know whether I'll be alive or not. There used to be always a joke about it that, you work hard to get a lottery, and imagine you get $1 billion lottery, and the next moment you die. Finished. You kick the bucket
Yeah.
right at that moment.
Right.
What is the point of getting a lottery if you can't enjoy it? So the beauty of life is not in chase, but it is in present, in living. It's not in becoming, but in being. So these are the beautiful, ways of looking at life. So the fear, actually, you asked this question, and there was a next question exactly for that. Let me show you that. How to balance attachment and detachment. Somebody had asked this question. So if you look at it, exactly. So it is not a like worry about balancing or not balancing. The problem is, if only we learn how to attach to the right thing, because working is not attachment. It is a destiny. It is my vasana. It is my, it's my, all my impulses and instincts which will make me work. The way I'm supposed to work, I will work. So my attachment is not in that. My attachment in the right attachment. Where do I attach? What should be my focus of my life? And that is what sublimation is all about. Actually, I've not discussed that, but it's a beautiful word. I think I can spend a minute just giving you that thought. We say suppression is not good. You remember, we always talk about it, that you should not suppress. And when you have a desire, don't control it. If you control it, it bounces back. Then we talk about a term called sublimation. So if you have some desire, sublimate the desire. Don't suppress the desire. Now, what is this sublimation? How it happens? That is very beautifully explained. That sublimation is how you make it weaker and weaker so that the desire disappears. And the way to make it weaker is attaching yourself to the higher desire. And that is why people who are spiritually bound, for them it is easy to comprehend that rather than going from a chocolate to a, from a candy to a Cadbury's to a, higher car and to other things, you straight away attach yourself to God. And the moment you attach that highest element, then this smaller desire fades out. And that is sublimation. So it remains there, but when your attachment is there, then it starts losing its potency and slowly fades out. And that is what is called sublimation. So when I say balancing of detachment and attachment, is actually attaching yourself to the right. And obviously, that act of attachment will change. then the need for detachment may not be there. You got it? So that is the next question actually. Let me share with you the last question, and then we can see if there is anybody else. Any practical steps for remaining attached yet detached in life? Oh God. Okay. Let me share this here. Any practical steps for remaining attached yet detached in life? Attach yourself to the Supreme. Attach yourself to the purpose of life. If you have to contemplate, meditate, or discover, our main focus is to figure out what is my purpose and attach yourself to that. Do not worry. A spiritual being is one who has accepted God as their guide, accepted God as their guru. That is a spiritual journey of an spiritual aspirant. And hence, we lose the right to be afraid, depressed, dejected, and worried the moment we say, I believe God, I love God. So, the only way I would say, if only we can keep enhancing our love, our attachment towards God for the purpose, then everything else which happens naturally in our life will happen. And whatever is needed will automatically come to us. So that is a practical way of looking at how do I balance it and how do I attach myself. Ushaji, you said, would that be out of fear? Sorry, your question is not there. Which one you said? Sorry, you have just written a one sentence here. Would that be out of fear? I didn't get the relationship of which context it was. So, okay. Is there any other questions or thoughts? Then we can talk. Otherwise, I think I've come to my time. I always like to take it like that. But thank you very much. I think this was a very good session. And thank you, Brother Ramakrishna and Sister Shobna, for
Thank
joining.
you.
You know, it is such a pleasure. I would thank you, Sister, for joining. It
Thank
was
you. Thank you.
for you to share this, your thoughts and your questions here. And thank you all the audience for joining us through YouTube and sharing your questions. And I look forward to your more suggestions and give me some idea about next topic you would like to discuss here. It'll be a pleasure to do that. Thank you, Brother Ramakrishna. Any final words, Sister Shobna, before we close?
It was such an eye-opening session. It was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sairam.
Thank you.
Sai Raman.